On a beach in Phoenicia, in the pale hour just after dawn, a bull without a single flaw stood at the edge of the surf, white as sea foam, its horns catching the early light like polished gold. So calm and so beautiful that a young princess walked straight toward it without a trace of fear. By sunset that same day, she would be miles out at sea, clinging to that same bull's back, watching the coastline of everything she had ever known shrink into the haze behind her, with no way to call for help and no one left who could hear her. Behind that gentle white hide was the king of the gods himself, and the girl riding on his back had never been asked whether she wanted to go anywhere at all. Her name was Europa, and in time an entire continent would carry it, though she never asked for that either, and never lived to see it happen. How does a princess gathering flowers on a beach become the mother of kings and the namesake of half the known world without ever being given a choice in any of it? That is the story for tonight. The beach, the bull, the long gray crossing of open water, and the family she left behind, who searched for her until the search itself changed the map of Greece. If you enjoy these stories, take a moment to subscribe. It truly helps this channel, and tell me in the comments which myth you'd like next. Now settle in, and let's go back to the shore where it all began, on an ordinary morning in the kingdom of Tyre that would turn out not to be ordinary at all. Long before she became anyone's queen, Europa was simply a princess of Tyre, one of the great trading cities of Phoenicia, on a coastline that is now part of modern Lebanon. Her father, Agenor, was a king whose ships carried purple dye and cedar wood across the eastern sea, while her mother, Telephassa, was a queen who would later be remembered mostly for the desperate journey she made. 3 brothers filled the palace alongside her: Cadmus, Phoenix, and Cilix, each of whom would one day give his name to a stretch of the ancient world, though none of them yet knew it. By every account that survives, Europa was lovely, clever, and deeply loved in her father's house, the kind of daughter a king boasts about to visiting merchants. The night before everything changed, according to the old poets, she dreamed a strange dream. 2 great landmasses, shaped like women, stood arguing over her, each pulling her closer, each claiming her as its own. One calling itself the earth that had raised her, the other a stranger continent across the water, insisting that fate had already promised Europa to it. Waking unsettled, though she could not say why, she told no one, but privately felt that something about the dream carried a warning. As she often did, she dressed, gathered her friends, and walked down toward the shore near the city to pick flowers in the cool of the morning, not knowing that somewhere far above her, on a mountain she had never seen, a god had already noticed her and already decided what he wanted. High on Olympus, Zeus looked down at the world the way he often did, and his eyes settled on the beach outside Tyre, on a girl walking along it with flowers in her hands. In the space of a single glance, he decided that he wanted her, and being the king of the gods, Zeus rarely troubled himself with what anyone else might want. Neither Europa nor her father was ever asked. Instead, he began planning how to take her, the same cold and practical way he had taken other mortal women before, choosing a disguise gentle enough that she would never see the danger coming until it was already too late to run. A bull, he decided. Not a wild, snorting animal such as farmers drove through the hills, but something else entirely. A creature so beautiful, so calm, so obviously tame that a careful young princess would have no reason to fear it. Hermes, his son, was sent to drive Agenor's grazing cattle down toward the shore where Europa walked, and quietly, without announcement, Zeus slipped in among them, wearing the shape of a bull himself. His hide turned the white of fresh sea foam. His horns curved like 2 crescent moons, small and delicate for so large a creature, and even his breath, the old poets say, carried the faint scent of crocus and violet, as though the god had dressed his disguise in the very flowers Europa had come down to gather. Then, alone, he walked out of the herd and made his way toward her across the warm sand. When the bull stepped out from among Agenor's grazing cattle, Europa's companions scattered back in alarm, the way anyone raised on stories of gorings and stampedes might. This animal, though, did nothing to earn their fear. It walked toward the girls slowly, almost carefully, and lowered itself onto the sand at Europa's feet as gently as a trained animal performing for a crowd, its huge dark eyes calm and strangely patient. Soon it allowed her to touch its flank and to weave a garland from the very flowers she had been gathering and drape it across those small curved horns. It lowed softly in response, almost like gratitude, as though pleased with the decoration. Slowly, Europa's fear gave way to delight and then to daring. Laughing, she called her friends closer and pressed her palm flat against the bull's warm white side, marveling at how tame so magnificent a creature could possibly be. Half as a game, she climbed onto its broad back and settled herself among the flowers she had draped there, looking back at her companions with the bright, careless smile of a girl who thought she was simply having an adventure on an ordinary morning. None of them noticed that beneath her, the bull's great body had gone taut and waiting, the way a hunter goes still the instant before a trap is sprung. For one more heartbeat, everything on that beach stayed golden and safe. Then the bull rose to its feet and began, unhurried, to walk toward the water. The moment the bull's hooves touched the surf, Europa's laughter stopped. Calling for the animal to turn back, she patted its neck and tried to slide off into water still shallow enough to stand in, and found, for the first time, that the huge body beneath her would not obey her at all. Onward, the bull walked, past the point where the waves broke, past the point where her feet could have touched sand, out into water so deep and cold that the shoreline of Tyre began to shrink behind her into a thin, pale line. Wrapping one arm around a curved horn to keep from sliding into the sea, she screamed for her father, for her mother, for anyone on that vanishing coast who might somehow hear her. But no one was close enough to listen, and the wind carried her voice away before it had traveled 100 yards. The sea itself seemed to answer instead of any human being. Dolphins rose and circled the swimming bull, the old poets say, while Nereids surfaced among the waves to watch the strange procession pass, and Triton himself blew a low note on his twisted shell horn, as if announcing to the whole ocean that something enormous was being carried across it. None of it was comfort. Soaked and shaking, Europa clung to the one solid thing beneath her, watching Phoenicia disappear behind a horizon that grew wider and emptier with every hour, with no idea where she was going, no way to stop it, and no one in that entire gray expanse of water who had thought to ask whether she wanted to go. Land came at last in the late afternoon, a strange coastline rising out of the haze, rockier and wilder than the coast Europa had left behind, ringed with mountains she did not recognize. Beneath a broad evergreen tree, the bull carried her up onto a beach and finally, gently, set her down onto solid ground, her legs shaking, her clothes stiff with salt after hours of terror and cold water. There, on that unfamiliar shore, the animal changed. The old writers describe it plainly. The white hide, the curved horns, the great patient bulk of the bull simply fell away, and in its place stood a figure of enormous and unmistakable power, who told her, without apology, exactly who he was and exactly what he intended. That this was the island of Crete, that he was Zeus, king of every god she had ever poured an offering to, and that her old life in Tyre was, from this moment, finished. In no version of that conversation did Europa have a real choice. A mortal girl, alone on a foreign shore, does not refuse the king of the gods and expect to be heard. What the old poets tell us is only this, that she wept, that she was afraid, and that fear, in time, gave way to something quieter, an exhausted, clear-eyed understanding that her life had been decided for her and that the only thing left within her power was how she would carry what came next. As a queen, it turned out, was exactly how she would carry it. Back in Tyre, the disappearance of Europa tore the royal family apart. She never came home from the beach that morning. No ransom demand, no witness, no explanation, only her friends returning alone and sobbing, with a story about a tame white bull that no one quite believed until there was nothing left to believe instead. Agenor, her father, would not accept that his daughter was simply gone, and he called his sons before him, Cadmus, Phoenix, and Celix, and gave them an order that was less a request than a curse. "Find your sister," he told them, "and do not come home again until you do." Unable to bear waiting behind in a palace, Telephassa, Europa's mother, set out herself alongside Cadmus, refusing to let her son search for a lost child while she stayed safely at home. Years of wandering followed, chasing rumors that led nowhere, asking strangers in foreign ports about a girl none of them had ever seen. Telephassa did not survive the search. Worn down by grief and travel, she died somewhere along the road, never learning what had truly happened to her daughter. One by one, the brothers gave up the impossible task, though none of them ever really went home again. Cilix stopped searching in the hill country north of Phoenicia and stayed to rule it, land that would later be called Cilicia in his honor. Phoenix settled along the coast his family already called home, lending his name in some tellings to Phoenicia itself. And Cadmus, exhausted and out of options, finally climbed the slopes of Delphi to ask the oracle where his sister could be found. The god's answer, when it came, told him plainly to stop looking. Crete, when Europa finally came to know it, was not the frightening place its wild coastline had first suggested. It was a rich and civilized island ruled by a king named Asterion, who had no children of his own. Learning who this stranger really was and whose favor she carried, he married her and made her his queen without hesitation. One more decision made about her life by a powerful man, though this one, at least, seems to have treated her with real respect. In time, Europa bore 3 sons, Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Sarpedon, children of Zeus, though it was Asterion who raised them as his own, and, having no blood heir of his own, eventually left his kingdom to Minos the eldest. Before returning to Olympus, Zeus is said to have left behind 3 strange gifts: a bronze giant named Talos, who circled the island 3 times a day to guard its shores from invaders, a hound that could never let its prey escape, and a spear that never missed its mark. Whatever comfort those gifts offered, the real transformation belonged to Europa alone. Over the years that followed, the frightened girl who had clung to a bull's horns across an entire ocean became a settled and capable queen, running a household, raising sons who would grow into judges and kings, and building, out of the wreckage of a morning she never chose, an entirely new life. She never saw Tyre again, but Crete, in the end, became hers. Minos grew up to become one of the most famous kings in Greek legend, a lawgiver so respected that later stories placed him in the underworld itself as one of 3 judges who decide the fate of the dead. Under his rule, Crete grew wealthy and powerful, its ships trading across the eastern sea much as Tyrus once had, as though some echo of Europa's first home had crossed the water along with her. Europa herself was never forgotten, not by her new island and not by the wider world beyond it. Trying to make sense of the lands they were mapping, ancient geographers eventually needed a name for the great stretch of territory north and west of the Aegean Sea, distinct from Asia, distinct from the lands to the south, and in the end, they reached for hers. No one is entirely certain why the name of a Phoenician princess came to be attached to an entire continent, one she set foot on for only a single afternoon before the bull carried her the rest of the way to Crete. But it did, and it has never let go. Every map drawn since carries a small trace of that morning on the beach outside Tyre, whether the mapmaker knew her story or not. There is something quietly striking in that. Europa never asked to be taken, never asked to become a queen, or a mother to kings and judges, or a name stretched across half the known world. Almost none of it was her choice. And yet what survived in the end was not the god who took her, but her name, carried by continents long after Olympus itself had gone silent. If this is the kind of story you want more of, take a moment to subscribe and tell me in the comments which myth I should tell next. Sleep well.